I remember very well being in my early 20s, thinking about two monstrous decisions that we face at that age, life partner and vocation. It seemed so ironic to choose something so consequential, but with so little experience to go on. I didn't really have anyone to consult, and if I did, I didn't know how. Thankfully, in my case, things have worked out pretty well. But I credit it to a stable upbringing where the Bible was held high. Now, decades later, I'm watching young adults in Thailand constantly making bad choices because they come from broken homes and they don't have a foundation of truth. And of course, that's happening here more and more. At the same time, I know so many solid, loving people, also with valuable experience, that I think could very much impact younger folks, showing them what God's Word is and how well it works, if we could just find a way to help them get started. My friend Bill Warner has always impressed me with his heart for Jesus and for people, and now he basically mentors teens as his full-time gig. So I thought it would be cool to have him talk about that as a way of starting the conversation. I think you'll enjoy Bill's thoughts, and if you're a veteran Jesus follower who would like to pursue something like this, please let us know. So here with Bill, we've known each other for about 25 years, and I just really appreciate you and your ministry. And give us a quick rundown, a few seconds.
Sure.
What kinds of things have you done in your life? And you came to the Lord as an adult?
Yeah, came to the Lord as a relatively young adult, Jim, and there's a life to be lived, right? There's a way things are, and I want to lean into that, and I want to help others to lean into that. I believe Jesus is who He said He is, and I want to help people lean into, discover, follow that kind of Jesus life. This is the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. So you've done pastoral ministry
for a little over 10 years.
You've done real estate.
I've done real estate. I want to say in a former life, but it's this life. Yeah, I've done
number
quite a bit.
Things.
Number of things.
And now I
teach. I teach in a Christian school, but I always remind myself, Jim, I teach juniors and seniors. So it's people first, content second.
Yeah. Okay. And you're teaching Bible.
Right. The content area is Bible, but within that, I like to frame it as cultural theology, worldviews, those kinds of things, life of Christ. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get lots of interesting questions.
Oh, gosh, for sure.
Yeah. Lots of issues that keep you thinking, keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this generation, Jim, is asking legit questions. And for a long time, I've maintained that legit questions deserve legit answers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so tell me, for you personally, starting out, okay, you're teaching the Bible, all right? How would you summarize the impact that the Bible has had on your own life? How much are you practicing your preaching?
So the Bible I'm convinced that the Bible is what it claims to be. It's a revelation of God to us, right? And it's a story. It's in narrative form. We are narrative beings. And so that book has formed me. It's formed me into a kind of a disciple that I think Jesus is looking for. I'm not tooting my own horn here. It's just in Scripture. It's there for everybody. But I don't want to keep that to myself. I don't see that as biblical. It's, hey, I've been given a gift, and it's too good of a gift to keep to myself.
Now, there's a lot of deconstructing out there going on, including people have access to more information, and there's some folks making a name for themselves, like talking about contradictions, inaccuracies, and so forth. What would you say to that? What are some things that lend credibility to this book or this collection of works?
So first of all, when I encounter people, be they my students or a neighbor across the street with those kinds of concerns and questions, I want to get specific. Help me understand, where are they? Right? Because you can't talk about specifics if people can't be specific. So help me understand, what do you see? And then we can go to work. Then we can talk. But this book, like, it fits.
Okay.
It just fits.
Okay.
It's a story from beginning to end. It is what it claims to be.
Okay.
And Jim, I've been walking with Christ for over 4 decades.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've had some of those same questions, and I've done the digging.
You do the homework and
done the homework. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and my certainty that Christianity is what it claims to be, Jesus is who he claimed to be, is higher now than when I first said yes to Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently hit on a whole insight from a book called the Book That Made Your World. I may have mentioned that to you. I'll put a link to it by Vishal Mangalwadi. He kind of reaffirmed something that I've been thinking about, that actually the messiness of the Bible really proves its credibility because there's just no parallel. There is no other ancient work that records accurate history, that attempts to say, we screwed up, there were problems. This hero, not so much. None of the hagiography and all that.
Right.
Yeah, and so this is real life.
Yeah.
And you look at those stories, those Bible stories. Why do we teach them in Sunday school? Right.
Right.
Not because they're just like stories, but they teach life.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. This has informed my life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Look at it, to your point, look at the disciples. They rat themselves out. They tell on themselves. If I'm writing a story like that, I'm not saying that I screwed up. I'm not going to write myself in. Simon Peter denied Jesus 3 times. I'm not going to do that. Right? That's not how we do things. Which, to your point, I don't know. There's a validity there. There's a ring of truth there.
Yeah. So what are some of the key paradigms or messages? We got to pull this as short as we can. What if you were to elevator speech on the Bible?
So the Bible gets it. It gets where we're at.
Okay.
It gets life philosophically. It gets life on the street level.
Okay,
it speaks to it. It's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So give me a sense of you're obviously living with a gratitude. Okay. That this means a lot.
Yeah.
This is something that gets you excited. Teaching it. How would you describe that?
Well, it gets me excited, Jim, because I've experienced the living word firsthand and how it's radically changed my life. I look back 40 years and the person I was then, the person I am now, and it's like night and day. And I want that for my students. Shame on me if I believe that I've come upon the truth, like this is life. Shame on me for trying to keep it to myself. So I tell my students, especially my seniors, I'm not trying to convince you of the validity of Christianity. I'm trying to persuade you of that. The convincing is not in my purview. That's between you and God. But I believe that it's real, and I'm going to try and persuade you to this. But hey, you're 16, 17, 18-year-olds. You grow up, man. You're going to make a choice here.
Yeah.
And you will make a choice by default.
Yeah. Well, and the point of this video is that we, us old guys, right? We've asked the hard questions.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
We've had the doubts. We've had the times of giving up.
Yep.
Maybe almost, or maybe really truly saying, never mind. This is, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
Right? And so we have some experience, okay? Because we've also seen why it does work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now give us your view, and you're teaching younger people.
Right.
Okay. And the point is that we can have an influence here. What do you see? What are some of the issues that you see going on in the millennials and younger down to Gen Z? What are some of the trends that concern you that people are talking about? We're not going to dwell on those, just touch on them.
Well, they concern me in the sense that my students are being taken in on them. They don't concern me in the sense that they can't be addressed.
Yeah.
They concern me in the sense, so some of the issues, Jim, are the postmodern bent, this skepticism of authority.
Okay.
I think there's a measure of legitimacy there, but really to be skeptical of everything, I kind of think not. Technology. I'm a firm believer that we form the habits that form us, Jim, and technology is not benign. It is habit forming. Now we have a choice on how we're going to use it, but I tell you what, I call it the glowing rectangle, and my students cannot live without it.
Okay.
That's not a good thing. That's not a win for
Yeah.
my students.
Yeah.
So this postmodern skepticism, there's nothing concrete, and all that postmodernism entails, and then technology. Those are two big pieces that my students are dealing with and wrestling through. And what hurts my heart, Jim, is they're swimming in these waters so deeply that they don't even see.
Right.
If you want to know about water, don't ask a fish, kind of a thing.
Yeah. The thing that we see a lot in Thailand, because of working with women who are with a lot of trauma, is they pick up the narcissism.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean,
because those are the cultural waters, right?
Sexy selfie a day, some of them, and again, not even recognizing that that's what it is.
Right.
Right. And I see some of that. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, in the West as well.
Oh, for sure. And this, if I could add another piece, it would be this narcissistic individualism.
Okay.
That we are the waters we're swimming.
Right.
It's me. It's all about me. But that book, the Bible, it's a very communal. We bear the image of a communal God, right? And so we in the West have erred way too side of the rugged individualist. I'm not talking about personal responsibility. That's real.
Yeah.
But yeah, this individual hyper individualism.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how do they ultimately? We would say that those are coming out of hunger for relationship, for purpose, meaning, that kind of stuff. How would you kind of summarize that?
The hyper individualism, we want to be known, right? I think there's a fundamental God-given yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody care about me? I believe that's so innately woven in the fabric of who we are, Jim. We will go to, we will see that need is met.
Yes.
The problem is, will it be met legitimately or illegitimately? That's the challenge with this. So yeah, there's a need being voiced there, right? There's a need with technology, control. Right? Am I in control? And if I'm not in control, is somebody in control? Because I can't live with chaos, right? So I think there's a deep-seated need there for order. The Bible calls it shalom, right? Yeah. So these are legitimate needs, and these are things that people like you and I, Jim, a little bit farther down the road, we ought to bring some perspective to the younger generations to help them navigate these waters.
We ought to, and we can.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Ought. Moral imperative.
Yeah. And so that's one of the questions that I have for you, and what you see back, reflecting from these kids. How do they see you as this older guy?
Okay. So
are you just somebody who's a Bible teacher and kind of... All right.
Gosh, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. So when we talk about influence, I'm not just in my students' lives in the classroom. I go to sporting events. We interact in the hallway. I'm always open to an interaction with my current students and former students. I have a lot of former students.
Cold shoulders, or you? What do you
gosh, no. It's interesting. Mr. Warner has been a teacher now for 12 years, going on 13 years. I'm a known quantity when the new juniors come into my classroom, and so they've heard about Mr. Warner. So there's already this established rapport, although it's a bit one-sided until I get to know them. But there's also great intentionality. I see my students as individuals within a collective setting, and that resonates with them. Again, back to the point, does anybody care? Am I known? And I want them to know that in room 405, they're known. And that's an avenue
and you see response. You see them coming back for more. You don't. Okay. And even bringing others.
And they know they have the freedom to disagree with me, but they also know if you're going to disagree with me or something that I've stated or a position I hold, let's go for it. But tell me why. What are your reasons? Let's talk about those reasons.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's such a thing as blind faith properly defined. Everybody has reasons for why they believe what they believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just great conversation, but it's relationship first.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get to that in just a second because we're going to wrap up the general idea here. Okay, all I want to do right now is just kind of get a vision out there for some folks.
Sure.
Right? Okay. And now we know what churches tend to do. Okay. And we talk about generational separation in churches, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But you and I agree, okay, that the opposite of general separation should occur.
Correct.
Not simply that we're sitting in the same room,
Correct.
but this very thing that you're doing with your students ought to be the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something that should be, oh wow, here's a great idea. It ought to be just let me give you an example. My wife and I, the church we attend, relatively small rural church, two small groups. We had a choice to go in a small group of people our age, or a choice to go in a small group of 20-somethings, singles, marrieds.
Yeah.
There was a no-brainer for us. We chose
Yeah.
the second group. Why? Because we can rub shoulders. We can learn from them. They can learn from us. It's this synergistic effect that's great for the church. That's great for us. And so we've had many opportunities, both in the small group and outside of the small group, sitting down over coffee to speak life into the younger generations. And you mentioned ought and can. I hope whoever hears this is hearing that. Ought, moral imperative, can. We can do this. This is something that's within our purview, within our grasp.
Right.
Yeah, it's not for like these super saints.
Okay. Yeah. So first, I'm hoping, again, we can kind of throw out the idea here. All right. Just get some folks thinking about it. Now, there's some basic prerequisites that aren't difficult. Okay. One of them that I see, okay, coming kind of as an outsider because I'm used more away, or have been more away from the U.S. than here, is that folks are pretty bad listeners. I mean, that's maybe kind of extreme. Okay. But a lot of talking and not much, and because we notice it coming from Thailand, not too many people are like, so tell me about some of the people you care about there. I hardly ever get that question. Maybe once a year, like that.
Yeah.
Tell me about what's important. How does it work there? Those kind of questions are rare. Instead, we're getting the flight of ideas, sort of stream of consciousness conversation.
Right.
And older people can be notorious for offering unsolicited advice and stories.
Sure. And no doubt, guilty as charged, right? But
sure. I mean,
but what does listening do? It says, number one, you matter.
Yep.
And number two, what you have to say matters. Number three, I'm not in your life, so bring me into your life.
Yep.
Listening helps us to accomplish all three of those, if I could use the term goals.
Yeah.
But it's I want to be listened to, so I need to afford the same courtesy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And we I think there's a wiring. I think there's a wiring in kids to love old people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would not disagree with that.
We don't have to. And when I was a young adult, okay, I was in a rural church. We didn't have a cool youth pastor. He was the pastor of the church, an older guy, and the area churches that we would get together with. Luther League was at the time, and these older Norwegian pastors that loved Jesus. We loved them to death. Yeah.
I think the generational differences are overblown. They're real, but they're overblown. We share a common humanity.
Yeah.
And that's ground zero for launching for influence, for launching for discipleship.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a narrative out there that we need to just, nope, not doing that. No, too much difference, too much age difference. Jim, there's 45 plus years age difference now between my students and I.
Yep.
We still seem to click. I ask a few a select group of students, hey, am I still clicking with the students on Mr. Warner? If you ever leave this school kind of a thing, then so
Because the needs are the same.
Yeah.
It's just the
Just different details, different stages of life, but people are people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, that's the basic idea. So let us know what you think, okay? If there's something here that we've said that you want to kind of interact about. Now, when I have mentioned this to guys and women, okay, you ever considered taking on someone as a mentor? They'll say, I'm not qualified, and I wouldn't know how to start. Just give us a quick kind of...
First of all, you are more qualified than you think you are. Number one, you have life experiences that you don't even have to think about. You can just bring them to the table, right? Speak to unique needs of whoever you're talking to. The second piece to what you said, how do I get started? I think that's one of the reasons for this video.
Yeah. Now, certainly in a church, okay. So finding a way to get into the youth group, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then, of course, with neighbors and so forth. And of course, the number one thing, just start praying. Start praying.
Ask God to just open up your eyes. We talked earlier, Jim, before we went on the air. God is the one on mission. Long before you and I stepped foot on this planet, God was on mission. Long after we leave this planet, God will still be on mission. It's his gig, and he invites us into what he's already doing. And if he's going to invite us into what he's doing, he'll equip us for that. Now, it's not done in isolation. It's in a community environment, but there are more people than how do I do this? I'm scared. And there are more people than you realize in the same boat. If they had a catalyst, if they knew somebody else was thinking the same thing, we'd be off and running.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. So send us a note. Let us know if this is anything worthwhile. Okay.
Thanks.